What's Jester Jesters?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jester Jesters Goes Viral TED Talks. Gives me great pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker, Jonathan Hearn.
Oh, thank you so much. First of all, a massive thanks to Jester Jesters Goes Viral for hosting my TED Talk. If you don't know about Jester Jesters Goes Viral, it's a weekly online variety show which started when the live show Jester Jesters had to stop because the pubs closed in March. As soon as it's able to be live again downstairs at the Betsy Trotwood every Monday, these will stop going out every week. In fact, this might be one of the final few episodes of Jester Jesters Goes Viral. And to facilitate Jester Jesters Goes Viral, every now and then my talk will be interrupted by one of this week's submissions. Anyone can submit a video or audio clip, and in fact they don't even get seen until the episode goes out, so they could be anything. Does that work as a disclaimer? They asked me to do a disclaimer. Right, so I'm here to talk about birds and why they take so long to get ready. No, not those sorts of birds. Of course, I'm referred to our avian friends. I'll start philosophically. Does a bird know that it's a bird? And here's a short little fun clip to demonstrate what I'm talking about there. Who is this bird I see staring straight back at me? Why is my reflection someone I don't know? Now, you're probably thinking that I could have sung, "Who is this gull I see?" I do realise that now. The reason I've started with that is because I do want this to be memorable. I know obviously it is being recorded, but I'd love it for us to have some of the sort of seemingly insignificant moments in our memories as memories, the sort of memories that make us us. I don't know, perhaps one day those memories could be directly recorded digitally. One can only dream. Birds. They sing us songs. They break our arms with their wings. They fuck our bees. Now, some of you have probably spotted the intentional mistake there. They're, of course, not our bees. They are the Queen's bees. There are 100 billion birds out there. Don't let them in. There aren't enough perches. I want to tell you a personal story, an anecdote, if you will. One morning, some years ago, I was walking through a park and I happened upon a distracting scene. Two joggers, their jogs having been arrested by something as they were stationary, looking down at the ground at a dead magpie. Now, I couldn't stop. I had to carry on walking. I had somewhere to be. But I couldn't take this image out of my mind. It was burnt into my memory. What had happened there? Had they both killed it? Had one of them killed it and then the other one had just shown up? Had neither of them killed it and it had died of natural causes? Or perhaps COVID-19? Corvid is another word for crow, the crow family. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be making jokes like that. I shouldn't be making shit jokes. But you know, this is harder than it looks. So I couldn't stop thinking about these two joggers looking down at the dead magpie. All the different possible scenarios which could have led to it were sort of going round and round in my mind. If they had killed it, why had they killed it? Had they killed it because they didn't like birds? because they didn't like magpies, or because they didn't like this particular magpie? I became obsessed. I kept thinking about it. I kept thinking joggers, magpies, joggers, magpies. I found myself in a sportswear shop, and I found myself buying a jogging outfit and then regularly going jogging in the same park, trying to get into their heads. And then one morning, I was there jogging through the park, thinking joggers, magpies, joggers, magpies, joggers, magpies. And then suddenly, I saw underneath the tree, arrogantly pecking at the ground, a lone magpie. And I was filled with this confusion and this rage. And I found myself leaping on the bird and wrestling it to the ground. I wrapped my fingers round its throat, and its wings beat my face. And I squeezed until its wings beat no more. I then woke up on myself and stood up and looked down and realised what I'd done. I looked at the still bird corpse. And then just then, another jogger turned up beside me. And he looked down at the magpie and he turned to me and just said, "Bastards, aren't they?" And that's why I'm doing this talk today. I want to make amends, and I also want to placate the obsession with birds which started that day. But before I continue, let's bring on the first act of Jester Jesters Goes Viral. Please put your hands together, beat your wings, and welcome the first act, Chris Timoney.
This is a ukulele. They are widely regarded as shit, because they are. Also, it's the only instrument I can play since I pulled all the nerves in my head. That's not true. What really happened was that I put my guitar in the wash, which destroyed the guitar, mashed it up into a pulpy paste. So I had to buy a ukulele instead. Again, that's a lie. I just thought it would be cool, like everybody else at the time, to get one when it was cool. It's safe to say that time has long since passed. The ukulele, it only costs 20 quid, but the smile is free. If you can summon the strength to smile, that is. Here's a song about one of my heroes, because there aren't many left. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, spider legs, spider hands, spider knees, spider thighs, spider face, spider eyes. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, spider head, spider mind, spider sized. He doesn't laugh, he gets trapped in the bath. It's probably not him. It's not him. What I've done there is I've mistaken a fictional masked vigilante with an actual arachnid. Never meet your heroes. You'll only be disappointed. 10 years on, I now know the difference. The things you learn. Now, it's safe to say on the merit of that alone, I don't make a living doing this. Not so much a bad living while doing comedy, but making bad comedy whilst doing living. I wrote that spider song 10 years ago when I thought I was depressed. Jesus Christ, I'm more depressed now. How naive was I back then? The things you learn. Yes, the regrets are all very real these days. I used to be a chef. I also used to be in a relationship, which meant I went from being a very happy man, surrounded by fan wines and cuisine, to being a very unhappy man, surrounded by just social poison and ashen pies. Just mashing potatoes in the dark to eat if PF's non, je ne regrette rien. No regrets, no regrets. And it was during that brief tenure as a chef that I would cook all the things. Soup. Mostly soup. Soup, the liquid meal. Of course, they say that you eat soup, don't they? Which is a lie, because you drink soup. You drink it, don't you? You don't eat soup, a ridiculous thing to say. Try it yourself. You won't be able to. It's a stupid thing to say. You wouldn't eat a cup of tea or drink an omelette. Well, you could try, but you'd look like a fool. And there was one thing I would refuse to cook, and that was a chicken omelette. A chicken omelette. That's an omelette comprised of both the unborn and adult stages of the same animal. Didn't sit well with me at all, for numerous reasons. A chicken omelette. Mother and child on the same plate. What goes in first? Is it it's a unilateral moral quandary. A real head scratcher. Imagine if you were a hungry first-year philosophy student. It wouldn't matter because you'd be drunk and have bigger fish to fry. Anyway, life's too short for philosophy. I remember being drunk. I can also remember being a student and living away from home for the first time. I was lucky if I could afford an egg, let alone a chicken. No, I mainly stuck to the red food group, i.e. sauce, Leicester and stripe. And the fridge, well, you wouldn't go near that because it's taking on the properties of an actual human stomach. You open it, smells horrid, and that's because at the top there's all this chewed food that's slowly breaking down, that drops down into a basin of volatile liquid at the bottom, that then gets siphoned off down a network of tubes, only to re-emerge as liquid shit at the front of the fridge underneath. Jesus Christ, what have you got in there? Oh, it's just the usual student fare. Half a jar of translucent mayonnaise, some watery flour that's mostly toast, and I don't know what that is, but it was originally either a lettuce or a chicken. Now we're only able to identify it by its dental records, which it's since grown. And sometimes you wonder yourself why you didn't have more relationships. Turns out the fridge was more cultured than I was. Of course, I was in the unique position to be one of the few people in the entire world who have had more breakups than relationships, due to a number of baffling clerical errors. But I've had my moments. There was this one time in 2010 where I was on a train platform and there was this girl on the opposite side of the tracks. I'm not trying to say that she looked impoverished, undesirable or difficult. If anything, she looked the opposite. Gorgeous she was. She had long, flowing obsidian locks like a raven's hair and eyes bigger than her face. And she had a face. She gotta have a face. It's a deal breaker. The alternative doesn't bear worth thinking about. If anything, it causes more problems than it solves. But she had this expression that suggested a troubling, ineffable state of ennui that, once prodded, could give way to an onslaught of joie de vivre. A bit like Zooey Deschanel in any of her films. She was the one for me. So I had my ukulele with me and I thought, why don't I try and woo her with a song just off the top of my head? It's important to point out that this is a spontaneous carpe diem type gesture. I definitely didn't write a well thought out song in advance to use in situations like this. That would be seedy, calculating and manipulative. No, who would do a thing like that? So I looked at her directly and wistfully, as much as it was possible to do both of those things at the same time, and I started singing at her. Hello, girl, over there. You've got skin, a mouth, a nose, and face and raven's head. Now, she looked very visibly awkward in response to this whole exchange, extremely uncomfortable to the point where she pulled down her skirt and moved her legs to the side. She was wearing black tights. I wouldn't have been able to see anything even if I wanted to. I'm not saying I did. I mean, what's to be gleaned from that anyway? If anything, I was thinking about anointing her breasts with oil. I wasn't, but her reaction to me was one that suggested that I may as well have done, but I hadn't. That's horrible. I wouldn't think like that. I was being spontaneous and wistful across the tracks. You have to be very careful about what you write, say, and mean these days. So she called off in a direction in quite a concerned and alarmed way and was promptly met by another man, a taller, thinner man who also had a ukulele, which was odd, a baritone, pretentious. And he sat down and put his arm around her and looked at me dead in the eyes as if to say, mine. Mine. So that was that. But it reminds me of this other time where I was in this bespoke boutique second-hand music shop, you know, the kind of place that sells dulcimers, lutes, and those tiny toy French Renaissance harpsichords that are useless, a bit like ukuleles. And I was just in there, hovering by the baritone ukuleles, and in walked this beautiful girl. And she had this expression that suggested she wanted to be whisked away, and off her feet, possibly, because she had an old soul, but behind that mirror of desire was a petulant child wanting to ruin everything. A bit like Zooey Deschanel in any of them that you've seen. So, again, I had my ukulele with me, and I thought, why don't I try and woo her with a song off the top of my head? Again, it's important to point out that this was a spontaneous gesture. I definitely didn't write out a well-thought-out song to use in situations like this. So I sang. I said, I like, and as quick as a flash, she said, old movies. And I said, like The Godfather. And she said, 3. And I said, what? It's not considered one of the best ones. The best ones, have you seen the first two? Have you actually sat down and watched the first two? The first one's widely considered to be a classic masterpiece. The second one's often cited as the only sequel in film history to have perhaps bested the original. The third one's a joke. It's like a TV movie. Winona Ryder pulled out of filming because the script was that bad. They had to get his daughter in to phone in this weird dead-eye. Why would I want to spend the rest of my life with you? So she paired off with a tall, skinny man in the shop who had a baritone ukulele and left me sitting, slumped forward in a chair. Then I died alone. That was for anyone who hadn't seen The Godfather 3. No, I got a tube home. But an amazing thing did happen. I was going westbound Piccadilly when the train stopped and the doors opened. It in flew this massive bee. Huge it was, about the same size as my head. It started bombing from one end of the carriage to the next, going bzzz, boof, bzzz, boof. And then an amazing thing happened. Everybody looked up. All the children tried to catch the bee in their sticky hands because all children have sticky hands, and all the women tried to fan the bee away because all women are scared of bees, apparently. And all the men tried to beg the bee for forgiveness because all men are guilty of something. And as this all unfolded, I thought to myself, wow, this lowly, fat, stupid, insignificant, lost, lowly insect has united this whole carriage together in an otherwise antisocial, cliched environment. How amazing, how fantastic. So I've been releasing bees on the tube ever since. With mixed results, if I'm being honest. A lot more people are allergic than you'd think. If love was a girl, she'd be fragile, and her hair would be a de Chanel brown. And she'd show up on a whim like another phantom limb, but she wouldn't have the time for clowns. For clowns, no, she wouldn't have the time for clowns. And if love was a drug, it'd be addictive and keep you up all night until you had no money, till you stopped being funny, and you'd probably get into fights. To fights, yeah, you'd probably get into fights. And like a wind that suddenly breaks from a chicken omelette that you shouldn't have ate, well, you'll wake up screaming 'cause your stomach aches from loving other mistakes, loving other mistakes. If love was a song, it'd be unending until it slowly drove you mad. You get stuck in your head and you start to see red, but they say the best songs are sad. So sad, yeah, they say the best songs are sad. And if love was a joke, it would be meta, constantly aware of itself. And like a ukulele song, it never lasts long until they bring on somebody better, till they bring on somebody else, someone else, yeah, they bring on somebody else. And like a wind that suddenly breaks from a chicken omelette that you shouldn't have ate, well, you'll wind up screaming 'cause your stomach aches from loving other mistakes, loving other mistakes. And if love was a bee travelling westbound Piccadilly, it would sting you, and you wouldn't like love no more. I've killed 4, no, you wouldn't like love anymore.
Wonderful stuff, wonderful stuff. Now, you shouldn't throw rice at weddings. Especially during the speeches, someone's paid for that food, show some respect. Show some rice-spect. No, you shouldn't throw rice at weddings because the pigeons eat the rice, it expands in their stomach, they explode and they die. You might think, stupid pigeons. But who's inviting them? And we all overdo it at weddings. Poor little pigeon at a wedding, sat there at the end of the table. No one's talking to them. They're a pigeon at a wedding. They only know the groom. They've got their little name card, A Pigeon. They're wearing their ill-fitting suit that they only bring out for weddings. They've overindulged on rice, feeling bloated. Later on, they're on the dance floor in the corner, dancing away on their own. No one's dancing with them. They're a pigeon at a wedding. How do they get their wings through the sleeves? Something to think about while this next piece plays. Show some respect for Patrick Hearn.
It's been a strange year. I think I'm probably not alone in thinking that. It's strange because it started off, felt like it was going to start off quite positively the first couple of days of January. I think just the excitement of being in a new decade after all that time. It took 10 years again, but we were finally in a new decade and we were in the 20s. We were in a decade where we could finally know what to call it after 2 decades of not being sure or not being happy with the noughties and the wonders. And finally we're in the 20s, something we could really grasp. The roaring 20s. But the decade did start off with a bang, with the extrajudicial killing of the Iranian general Soleimani. Now, what surprised me about that was not that he was killed by the US without any form of trial or international agreement. That wasn't what surprised me. What surprised me is that he doesn't wear a beret. And normally, the people that the US don't like wear berets. At least that's what I've noticed. There's like Che Guevara, there's Saddam Hussein, of course, Stalin, Parisian artists. What is the link between artists and sort of military dictators and berets? The only people I've ever seen wearing them is a sort of Parisian artist or an authoritarian military dictator. Maybe it's that war is the art form of the 20th century. Maybe Hitler didn't give up art when he flunked out of a Vienna art school. He just found a form that was more fitted. Fortunately, he was shit at that as well. I feel like after all this time, I should probably tell you a little bit about myself. So I do live in London, but I grew up down south near Winchester in North Hampshire, north of Southampton, south of Northampton, in a village called South Wonston on the northwest side of the South Downs. Grew up on the east side of the village on a road called West Hill Road North. Went up north to uni in the West Midlands in South Staffordshire, and I came back down south to London when I lived in East London, moved to South East London, to North East London, and then where I live now, which is in East London, which is just near West Ham and East Ham, just up from Upton Park, north of the river, south of the Watford Gap, west and south of the North Circular. I've never been great with the compass directions. It always gets a bit confusing. I get the east and west confused. But we live on a globe, so eventually it works out if you get those wrong. I'm better with my hands though. I can always remember which is my right hand because I write with my right hand. And I remember that this is my left hand because my left hand is institutionally anti-Semitic. And the other story at the start of the year was the fires in Australia, which were burning unchecked. Well, they checked and they were still burning. But apparently something like 1 billion, 1.5 billion animals died. Many animals went extinct, which is terribly sad. But it does make things easier for zoologists. There's fewer to learn. And now if you just look through a lot of textbooks where it used to have the description of a very particular species and all their little intricacies, it now just says ash.
That was terrific. Wow. Chickens. Chicken. Here are some chickens. Here is some chicken. Here are some chicken. Chickens. I have with me here a chicken. And this chicken wants to express themselves. Bum bum ba ba dum bum bum ba dum ba ba bum 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 ba ba dum bum 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 ba da bum 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 ba ba dum bum 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 ba da dum bum bum ba ba dum bum 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 ba da bum. And now here's someone else expressing themselves. Clap, cheer, betwixt your thighs put your beer. It's Declan Kennedy.
Hello? Hello?
First of all, take some duped beef. That's beef that's been deceived, probably about house prices or APR rates. Make sure the beef is randomised by throwing it in the air and asking the public to select a winner by email. Glance at the beef longingly. Put the beef in a headlock and wrangle it into the mixer. Set the mixer to montage. Play the montage music. We recommend this. While this unfurls, prepare a mattress of rice. Steam the rice over a simmering controversy, such as that over the true nature of dark matter. For this, you'll need to boil copies of The New Scientist. Make sure the beef is weeping for lost innocence when you decant it. You'll need a Mother Superior to absolve the beef. Its sins will be many and varied, including copyright infringement. Remember to bestow the title upon the dish at this point with the naming ceremony. Otherwise, it will be nameless. Assemble the brethren to chant the will of the dread without form who slumbers in the deep. Add a sprig of parsley. Serve piping hot and alight at the next station.
In an emergency, use authorization.
Should you do your duty and get back into work to save our cities, or instead embrace change? We'll have a debate. And we've a suggestion for the last night of the proms.
Vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans
3 people were shot, 2 fatally.
or whether we give free rein.
On this day, in 1982, the QE2 was shaved. The Queen attended the ceremony and handed over the Braun electric shaver by which it was defollicled. In 1977, Freddie Mercury courted controversy with his controversial live show, which generated controversy when it included the taunting of live barnacles. In 1972, police and protesters clashed at a rally for the equality of people with antlers. Lobby group Headstrong later criticised the police for their quickness to use physical force when officers and attendees locked horns. In 1993, pop star Vaughn Plosif awoke from a 6-day coma. The singer, who gained worldwide acclaim for his #1 hit I Want to Strip Your Assets, sustained a serious head injury when a trowel went out of control during some extreme gardening.
Being black is not a crime! 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 The UK is not innocent! 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 Because black lives matter! Black lives matter! Black lives matter! Black lives matter! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! Hey people, we love you!
Fantastic. So, in conclusion, or if you like, in Jonclusion, if I had a time machine, I would go back in time and get a live dodo and then bring it to the present, kill it, stuff it, and sell it to the Natural History Museum to replace the fake one they have. Thank you so much for having me. I hope this has been memorable. Thanks to Jester Jesters Goes Viral for hosting this. Please do like, share, subscribe, donate. They made me say that. No, seriously, a lot of work goes into these episodes. They really appreciate that. And also you can send in a clip for next week's episode, or audio or video. And next week will be hosted by Patrick Hearn, which will be tricky seeing as he's being haunted. Once again, thanks for the memories. Good night. What? I don't remember the audience being birds.
Are these my memories? Like I always say, it's an aviary out there.